Okay, this video is basically a reading response or viewing response after watching Pan's Labyrinth. Side note, I watched Pan's Labyrinth most recently during the full moon, incidentally, so got the feels. All right, so again, every question here is going to be referencing Pan's Labyrinth. And how is the relationship between men and women portrayed? Women are completely subservient. It's a men-dominated world. It's a world at war, um, but it goes beyond that. Women are just not really players in the game. They're just assets. They're just help. What are the power relationships between men and women? Again, men have all the power, and when I guess I should tell you that when we talk about men and women, we're talking about the main male character is the captain, who is as villainous can be. He marries a widow who has a child, and his whole purpose, seemingly, to marry this woman is to create a baby, and of course, only a son. He scoffs at the idea that his child, he does get the woman pregnant, that his imminent child, it could be anything but a son. He laughs at it because his sole purpose, her sole purpose, the widow, was to provide him a son. And that goes throughout, that theme goes throughout the film because he could really care less whether she survives. It's a traumatic birth and she doesn't survive. Spoiler alert. He could care less. All he cares about is the son. He didn't care about the daughter that she brought from her previous marriage. He terribly underestimated Mercedes. I think it was Mercedes. She was like cook. She was help. She was help around the base. He the captain, who is the embodiment of male in this film, basically views women as nothing. So, how are male and female roles defined? It's pretty evident. The men have guns. They're in uniform. They're very stern and self-important, and the women are doing everything that actually makes their life operate. But they're not even paid any mind to, really. What constitutes masculinity and femininity? Okay, that was what we did. How do the male characters represent oppression? Well, they're uniformed, they're armed, they're commanding orders. There's no communicating with these men. What they say, depending on your place in the hierarchy, of course, goes. They are oppressive by nature, and they actually give the whole film that kind of sense. Do characters take on traits from opposite genders? Well, I think so. What constitutes masculinity and femininity? So that's masculinity. I said was the the uniforms, the strength, the guns, attention to detail. Femininity, wow, is mercy. Showing mercy, caring, doing the things of social caring, even that the men of the film have no time for. And yes, I think that there is some of that in this film, where of role reversals. Obviously, Mercedes is as crafty and resourceful a character in the film as anyone. Mercedes, again, being the help, the cook. She's a part of an underground resistance. She's, I would say, a Spanish Princess Leia type, and awesome, an absolute favorite character of the film. Ophelia, the daughter, again, femininity, mercy at the end with the child, with her brother. Awesome, just awesome. But the doctor, the male doctor, also shows mercy. He's treated almost at the same level as the women throughout the film, and I think that's because he is not masculine. Um, he's caring. He is overtly caring. Even, I'm sure there's other soldiers, not really portrayed in the film though, that weren't nearly as heartless as the captain. But the doctor was his opposite. What does the work say about women's creativity? Neat. um, well, the women are all somewhat creative, but I think the most important thing is the imagination of Ophelia, of the princess herself. You could view the film as this is her way, or a child's way of coping with the loss of her father, the marriage of her mother to a merciless villain, a Darth Vader type villain. Um, her her mother then getting pregnant, um, people being hurt, the war actually coming to her doorstep, her mother dying in a violent birth. Some of this, you could step back and say, well, this is just all her imagination. This is her way of coping about it. And in a sense, the film is really about the inner strength of this child, right? Of this female. It's about her inner strength, her inner goodness, that transcends war. There's probably more to it. I'm not a film critic yet, but uh, what role does the work play in terms of women's literary history and literary tradition? What role does the work play in terms of women's literary history and literary tradition? Well, I mean, I've already compared the characters to some of the strongest women in film. Well, Princess Leia, uh, the men. I've compared to Darth Vader, that sort of thing. The work definitely shows women at a time where they can be immensely impactful, but quickly overlooked. Uh, but as their role in terms of women's literary history and literary tradition, uh, my opinion, Mercedes is one of my favorite rebels of all time. And Ophelia is good a princess as Ariel, the Little Mermaid. What can I say? How are stereotypes exposed, challenged, or dismantled? Ooh, my favorite part. So the captain ignored the ignored Mercedes so much, or so, I don't know, so took her for granted, or was not worried about her. It never occurred to him what she was capable of. Not only was she capable of of her great subterfuge, right, of being a part of the resistance, of smuggling. He trusted her enough that she actually had access to stores of goods that she was able to smuggle from the villains to the rest of the rebels in the wilderness. She's caring. She cares so much that she actually can out herself and become violent towards the captain. She's a heroine. She's an absolute heroine. Um, but the point is that women are overlooked, undervalued, and it bit the captain in the ass all around. Um, and I think that's super important. I think that's super important for the movie, uh, because obviously these characters were not to be underestimated. uh, they were underestimated, and Mercedes being underestimated by the captain was his very undoing. Um, and the absolute inherent goodness of Ophelia, if we reverse the earlier thought that we can just look at this film as this is a way for a little kid to handle the horrors of war at her doorstep, we could say, you know, this is also a fairy tale, uh, and what a wonderful way to show value, like to have a parable. You know, they wanted the blood of an innocent so that she could reach her, you know, her well, she was a princess, so she could reach her world and become a princess, reach her destiny. They wanted the blood, and it was she was urged to give the blood of her newborn brothers. Of course, she wouldn't do that because of her inherent goodness, the thing that actually makes her worthy of a crown. She doesn't do that. Instead, her blood is spilled, her earthly life ended into the beginning of her place as a princess of a better world, not in war. That's my Pan's Labyrinth bit. Hope it worked.